Charlotte Waits was violently attacked in her own home. The killer strangled her using the strings of her own blouse, then pushed her down the staircase, leaving her at the bottom of the steps. The first responding officers found what appeared to be an interrupted home invasion. Charlotte's purse had been dumped out, with its contents scattered across the foyer floor near her body. But whoever did this left the most valuable items behind. Charlotte's cash and credit cards were sitting right there in her wallet, completely untouched. A brutal attack like this was shocking for Lynette, Alabama. This was a quiet, upper-middle-class neighborhood about 9,000 residents, where neighbors knew each other and violent crime was rare. The intruder didn't take the property they had so carefully laid out on the floor. It suggested the entire scene was a performance, designed to keep police looking for a stranger, while the real reason for the violence remained hidden. The victim, 49-year-old school administrator Charlotte Waits, was in the middle of a bitter legal dispute. Her cousin Wayne was actively contesting her late uncle's will, fighting for a piece of a highly valuable land inheritance. The timeline immediately stood out to police. Charlotte was killed on the exact day she was scheduled to meet with Wayne and their attorneys to formally settle the dispute. The convergence of a major financial deadline and a staged crime scene forced investigators to look past random violence. They needed to focus entirely on who stood to gain from controlling that inheritance. Police quickly zeroed in on two main suspects connected to family tension. First was Wayne, the cousin fighting for the land. Second was Dave, the rebellious teenage boyfriend of Charlotte's daughter, whom Charlotte openly despised. Both men were quickly eliminated. Wayne was working at an aluminum plant all day without leaving for lunch, and Dave was at a landscaping job miles away. Furthermore, neither of their fingerprints matched an unidentified set found at the crime scene. Then there was Charlotte's husband, Barry Waits. He was the acting mayor of Lynette and the head of the local National Guard Armory. He was a highly respected local figure with a seemingly solid alibi, telling police he was working at the armory all day. With the obvious suspects cleared and the mayor seemingly above suspicion, the investigation stalled. For 3 years, the case sat virtually cold while investigators spent time chasing down hundreds of dead-end calls on their tip line. Barry's public standing and the grief he displayed in the aftermath effectively shielded him. The department focused its resources on anonymous tips and transient suspects, leaving the most obvious connection to Charlotte unexplored for 3 years. Behind that respected public image, Barry was keeping a massive secret. He had quietly fallen into severe financial debt. On the day of the murder, Barry slipped away from work and confronted Charlotte at home. He asked what she planned to do at the legal meeting that afternoon, and she admitted she was going to split the land with her cousin. If she settled, Barry wouldn't get enough capital to clear his debts. This diagram maps the specific notes of the Waits family finances. If Charlotte survived to split the inheritance, Barry's debts would remain. But if he killed her before the meeting, he would prevent the land split and trigger her life insurance payout. He strangled her, pushed her down the stairs, and dumped her purse to fake a robbery. Then, after funneling both payouts to zero out his secret ledger in his mind, he hurried back to the armory within his lunch hour to secure his alibi. Charlotte's murder was entirely calculated. Barry Waits executed a cold, ruthless accounting maneuver to balance his personal finances. But his plan hit an immediate roadblock. Because Barry was the spouse of a murder victim, the insurance company flagged him as a suspect and refused to pay him. Instead, the insurance company legally bypassed him, redirecting the funds directly to his 2 daughters, Heather and Kara. Years later, Barry made a fatal mistake. Still desperate to clear his ledgers, he aggressively tried to trick his grieving daughters into signing those insurance funds over to him. The specific pool of money Barry murdered for ended up exposing his true nature. His daughters finally saw through his grieving father persona. Recognizing his predatory financial behavior, Heather and Kara connected the dots. They called the police tip line themselves, providing investigators with direct testimony about his intimidation tactics and his hidden money problems. Armed with their testimony and a clear financial motive, police arrested Barry Waits. He was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to 40 years. Earnest, a killer can stage a scene and hide behind a respectable title, but the desperate paper trail of a hidden ledger always forces their hand, exposing the truth to the people standing right next to them.